Hello, welcome to Steve McDonald's Crafting, and today what I'm going to make is a memory book for Christmas. And you might think, well, what's a memory book? Well, I've got this card book here. I want to do something nice on the cover of this to be able to write some memories in here. Now, unfortunately, sadly, my grandmother died recently and she was 99, so she had a wonderful life. She was loved by all her grandkids, her kids, and her great-grandkids. I want to make something to be able to give to my mum after Christmas with a lot of memories in it from all the grandkids and the great-grandkids. I'm going to get people to do some sketches in it. I'm going to get people to write some messages in it and some funny anecdotes of the Christmases that we've spent with my nan and things like that in here. I'm going to be using my Big Shot for this, because I know not everybody has a Cricut. I love this machine. These are really cheap, a lot cheaper than a Cricut. Obviously it doesn't do as much, but if this is all the sort of thing that you want to do, then it works really well. Because I'm going to paper mache over this and give it some texture, I'm just cutting this out of normal thickness of card. That way they will also cut a lot easier. But what I will do is probably cut 2 or 3 of the same thing out, like this, of each, and that way I can glue them together and give it a bit more depth. I'm doing a bit of blue tape here to tape them down so they don't move once they go through. I find that this works a little bit easier. Let's go through, and because I've got these taped down, if I go through one, I can then always go through a second time, which I will, because they're not going to move anywhere and the cut on the card because they're nicely taped down. That's gone through twice. Let's see if they're going to come out. Oh yeah, look, they come out easy, and I'm sure the little bits will also come out of them quite easy as well. So I've got all these done now, and I've glued them all together, and I've got 4 layers of each one here. Now, this would have been quicker using a Cricut, because I could have just cut card out of this thickness, but I want to show that you don't have to have a Cricut. And now I'm going to build up some of the areas on these using some of this white air dry clay. I'm going to put a little bit onto this bell, so it gives it a real feel of being a lot more 3-dimensional in certain places. I'm going to go over some other little bits, perhaps on the hats of the people, a little bit down the bodies as well. And if you want to smooth it out, you dip your finger in a little bit of water and it will smooth it out lovely. It won't be so flat looking, and that's what I'm looking for. While that's all drying with the air dry clay, what I'm going to do is just cover this up with some glue and some paper to give this a bit of a texture. I'm not going to do the back. I don't need to go through the springs. All I'm doing is covering this bit of white glue down those sides as well, and then sticking on my brown paper that comes with all my Amazon deliveries or things like that. I've opened the book up so that I don't stick the pages together because I know what I'm like. And this will just give it a little bit of a texture. I'll leave the pieces that I've just done overnight to dry, and then that place should be nice and dry. And this will dry probably within about an hour or so, and then I can just turn over the edges onto the other side as well. These pieces have all dried now, and they've dried out nice and hard. The only thing is, because you put them on paper, they kind of do get the paper crinkle up. So I'm going to glue these down, and they may crack in places, but I don't worry about that because I'm going to cover them with another layer as soon as that glue is dry of paper mache to give it more of a rustic feel. I'm using the good old Yoo-hoo glue here to glue these down because I love the way that certainly on this sort of thing, how well it glues things down, the fact that it's not obtrusive in any way. It don't matter if it raises up a little bit because the next stage will cover that up. But that's all nice and dry now, and what I'm going to do is coat that with tissue paper as opposed to the normal thicker paper that I use. And the reason is I want it to take on a little bit more detail, and the thicker paper will take away that detail. So this is just a 2-ply tissue paper. It's the same stuff I use to clean up spills and things with in my studio, and I've ripped it up into smaller pieces. And I finally got myself a new glue brush. That will help because my other one had just got to the point where, well, there weren't no bristles in it at all. Popping it on the glue to where I want to stick a piece of this, and then I'm going to go in and then push it down. And as you can see, it is giving it a nice relief. Okay, this is dried now, both inside and out. So what I'm going to do is paint it. I was kind of up thinking about this overnight, about how I wanted to paint this. And I thought, shall I paint it all bright colours, or shall I paint it black and then go over it with some gold and dry brush it? I'd like to know what your thoughts would be and how you would have painted it in the comments, if you wouldn't mind. That would be really helpful. And all I'm using here is the black from Arteza. It's just an acrylic paint. As you can see now, that nice thin tissue, it leaves a nice texture, but what you don't get is you don't get the actual lines. I want it to be Christmassy, which I feel it is. And I am going to try and make this into a leather looking front cover, because I think actually that might look the nicest. And how I'm going to do that is I've got some different coloured reds here and some copper. I'm going to put the darker reds on first, but I'm going to be using a colour wash. And what I mean by a colour wash is I put a bit of the colour in there like that, and then I add water to it to dilute that down. Probably quite a bit of water is what I'm going to add. Then give it a little mix around till it's fully absorbed in there and there's no real lumps in it. I'm just using this old dessert pot. I just push my brush into it like this, and then I will go over this, covering it all, making sure I get into everywhere. Leave that on there for a few seconds and then go over it again and take some of that off. And then once it dries, I can then go over it with the next colour. And that way you build up the look as well. It's got lots of different kind of tones to it, and you've also got all this lovely texture that's gone on there anyway. Well, that's all nice and dry now, so I've gone over to a crimson red, and I'm going to be doing the same thing. I've watered down the same amount, but I'm going to leave it on a little bit longer to soak in before I pull it off using a cloth. About 2 minutes. So it's been on there a couple of minutes now, and I'm going to remove the excess same way as I did before. And as you can see, that has started to brighten up now. I'm happy with that, and I will let that dry off completely. Going to go over it this time with some scarlet red, which is a lot brighter. And if you haven't got these colours, to be honest, I don't go by names at all. As you know, I'm colourblind. All I'm doing is going by the different tones from darker to lighter. And again, I'm going to leave that on there as quite a bright one for a couple of minutes, and then go around and dab off the excess. And you'll start to see the different tones are gripping in different places. I'm going to do one more colour wash on this, and then I'm going to do some dry brushing over the top of it as well, and that will really make it kind of pop. But it is definitely coming on. I think it's starting to look leather-like now. If you don't want to wait in between, then just dry it with a hairdryer. Well, this is the last colour now, and as you can see, this is a lot brighter. And this is the Studio Red. And again, I shall leave this on for about a minute before I do anything else with it. And then I shall take it off the same as I did before. I'll show you what it looks like before I start dry brushing it. So this is dry enough now to do a bit of dry brushing on. And all I'm going to do is literally use a dry brush, pop a little bit of paint on there, dip my brush into it, just the ends, I'm not worried about too much, and then rub most of it off again so it's not damp in there, and then go over this lightly, and then I'll go through each one of the colours again in the same way as I did before. I don't worry about cleaning out the brush in between. I don't feel there's any need. Again, get rid of some of that. I'll go up it that way and then go it that way. Wisp over it, flick over it. You don't need to do anything else. You just want it to knock on there and give it some little wisps of highlight. And now I'm going to use a tiny bit of copper and do the same. This is a metallic-y kind of colour. I really don't want to go into it too much. I want to go onto like these bits, highlight the tops of these with the copper. What I will do now is I will allow this to dry completely, and then I will give it one coat of satin finish varnish before I put the little slogan on here. This is all nice and dry now, and I've also done the inside, but I didn't have to worry too much about the inside because it can be a little bit brighter, because naturally when the book's closed, the inside would be protected from the light. So now what I'm going to do is use this satin varnish and just go over it. And now I'm not going to go over it lots of of times because I don't want it to be really, really solid. This should give it a nice natural, almost like a sheen. And it'll also protect the paint and make it a little bit more hard wearing when it's being handed around and people are using it, and hopefully make it last longer so it can be something that we can look at in years to come. I'll let that dry off now. It's dry enough for me to put the next bit on, and I think that has come out really well. I'm very pleased with that. I'm going to glue these bits on, and I should be able to just glue them on using a normal glue pen for this, and I think it will just stick on there lovely. This glue pen will dry nice and clear. Now, rather than putting Merry Christmas, I've actually cut out Memory Christmas because I want this to be a memory book. Well, this is all finished and dry, and I'm really pleased with it. I always say that about everything, don't I? I do. Because I just love crafting, and I love making something that means something as well. I think it has come out looking like leather. I do like the Memory Christmas that I put on the top. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this project, please boot the thumbs up. It really does help my videos to get out there. I'm trying to grow this channel, and if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you for any of my projects and videos, it all goes to help support this channel. And if you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, because I'm trying to grow this channel. Have a great Christmas, everybody. Take care. Enjoy your crafting. Bye.